The mother wound is a pain of being a woman passed down through generations of women in patriarchal cultures. And it includes the dysfunctional coping mechanisms that are used to process that pain. On a personal level, it is the mother's projection of her own unhealed wounds on the daughter. And on a collective level, it's the dysfunctional coping mechanisms that have resulted from generations of female oppression. Patriarchy distorts dynamics between mothers and daughters that leave them both disempowered. From Bethany Webster's article, "The Most Insidious Forms of Patriarchy Pass Through the Mother." Hey y'all, I'm SoLise Love and welcome to the Goddess Given Truth. Today we're going to be talking about the mother womb, and we're going to be reviewing or discussing the mother womb through the movie Madea's Family Reunion. But before we begin, I just want to go over my intentions for this channel. My intention for this channel is for us as women to see each other in a clearer lens. My intention is to promote healing. Really, that's really it. My intention is also to center us in our issues. This is a growth-based space, and I also want it to be a safe space for us to talk about whatever we need to talk about. So yeah, those are my intentions. I want us to understand each other better, see each other better, be able to share our experiences and the wisdom that we gain from them. That's my intentions. But I don't want to ramble on too long. I want to kind of go ahead and get into the video. I'm super excited to talk about this topic and to be covering this movie. It's kind of going to be a review, kind of, but not kind of. I'm not reviewing the whole movie because honestly the whole movie isn't really important for the topic we're talking about. I really want to focus really on the dynamics between, if you've seen the movie, I want to focus on the dynamics between Victoria, Vanessa, and Lisa. So it's kind of a review, but it's not really. I'm not reviewing the whole movie, but I will be, giving my commentary here and there. Anyways, let's get right into the topic. Before we start talking about the movie, we're going to go over a few definitions that we need to know. So the mother womb, what is it, right? Now I got this definition from an article that I read. It's by this author named Bethany Webster. I'm going to put the definition on the screen, but I'm going to read from my paper. So yeah. The mother wound is a pain of being a woman passed down through generations of women in patriarchal cultures. And it includes the dysfunctional coping mechanisms that are used to process that pain. On a personal level, it is the mother's projection of her own unhealed wounds on the daughter. And on a collective level, it's the dysfunctional coping mechanisms that have resulted from generations of female oppression. Patriarchy distorts dynamics between mothers and daughters that leave them both disempowered. From Bethany Webster's article, "The Most Insidious Forms of Patriarchy Pass Through the Mother." Now that we know what the mother womb is, we're going to define two more definitions. It's going to be patriarchy and coping mechanisms. Patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system of relationships, beliefs, and values embedded in the political, social, and economic systems that structure gender inequality between men and women. Attributes seen as feminine or pertaining to women are undervalued, while attributes regarded as masculine or pertaining to men are privileged. This definition is from ScienceDirect.com, pulled from Catherine J. Nash entry in the International Encyclopedia of Human Geography, 2nd edition, 2020. Coping mechanisms are strategies used to reduce or avoid unpleasant emotions or situations. It's important to know that coping mechanisms can be functional or dysfunctional. Okay, so now that we're all caught up, we can go ahead and get into the movie, right? The movie is opening up and we are introduced to our first two main characters. So we have Carlos and we have Lisa. Lisa is played by Rochelle Aites and Carlos is played by Blair Underwood, right? So we have them two. These are our first two main characters and they are currently engaged. And they're actually getting married soon. They're getting married, let's say 3 months. They're getting married in 3 months. We move on to the next scene because honestly, in the first scene, they're like taking a bath or whatever. I think like Lisa was getting a bath or whatever. It looked like Carlos set it up for her as something romantic and sweet, even though she looked uncomfortable. But we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. That's all you need to know for the first scene. Lisa was getting pampered or whatever. They had roses everywhere. She was in the tub and she looked uncomfortable, and Carlos looked like he was causing discomfort. Lisa's all out of the tub and she's dressed, and in walks her sister, and I don't think they actually specify. I feel like I heard them say that was their cousin because she was around all the time, so I'm gonna go with cousin. In walks Lisa and her sister Vanessa and their cousin Donna. And Vanessa is played by Lisa Arundel, and Donna is played by Tangi Miller. Yeah, so they walk in, and I believe this is like Donna and Vanessa's present to Lisa as like a wedding gift or whatever. I guess she hadn't been at the house in a while and they want to see her and they want to do something nice for her. So they're at the spa and they're catching up on their life and everything. And here comes another character, Frankie. Now Frankie is trying to talk to Vanessa. He's not that important right now, but yeah, he's trying to talk to Vanessa. That's how he gets on the scene. He was dropping the paint off at the spot that they were at, and he stopped to talk to Vanessa because she gets on his bus every day. Frankie wants to talk to Vanessa. She didn't really say anything, so her sister kind of got his number for her and just let him know that she'll be contacting him and sent him about his way, right? So we're on to the next scene, and the girls are heading back to Lisa's house. Now for the second part of Lisa's gift, the girls surprised her with the exotic dancer. Lisa was constantly trying to vocalize how worried she was and how like this just isn't a good idea. Like she kept trying to say it, but she couldn't really, everything was moving so fast. She couldn't really say anything. Before we reveal why she was scared, take a look at this clip.
He had to come clean. He was married. I am so sick.
And you want me to go on a date?
Oh, because you need to. You haven't been out in 2 years.
Don't worry about me.
Now that is what they were talking about before the exotic dancer came. In this clip, you see that Donna is talking about how the man she was dating was married, and Vanessa is confused as to why they want her to date, and their experiences with men isn't even like a good one. They're not having great experiences with men. Remember earlier we were talking about how Lisa was trying to like tell them that like this wasn't a good idea for the exotic dancer to be in the house? Yeah, this is why it wasn't a good idea for him to be in this house. This is why she was worried. Take a look at this clip.
You don't bring him in my house. And I've been calling you. I've been calling you all day.
I left my phone here.
So why are y'all trying to convince her to date? You got a man that hits you, and the man you just got done dating was married. And it doesn't seem like you've had much luck with them before that. So why are y'all trying to convince her to do that? I just had to point that out because And before I say what I'm about to say, I totally forgot that earlier in the movie, Vanessa also mentioned that she has 2 baby fathers that are deadbeats. Their collective relationship with men and romance is toxic, and yet they're still encouraging each other to proceed past go and collect 200. Why? And this brings me back to what we were talking about earlier. So remember when we were going over the definition of mother wound, and we were talking about, we defined coping mechanisms. I feel like hope is one of them. It's the first one I've identified in this movie. I think we sometimes use hope as a coping mechanism to avoid our reality, to avoid whatever desired dreams or expectations that we have. They may never manifest the way we see it in our heads. When they deal with men, they have a certain type of expectation or ideal that is already attached to their interaction with men, right? And where do we get this from? We get it from movies, songs, a bunch of shit that brainwashes us and encourages us to ignore our reality and stay in La La Land. Y'all know we've all seen those movies. Wait for your Prince Charming and your knight in shining armor or whatever. And it's all bullshit. I'm not saying things like that don't exist now. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that it was all fed to us like that was automatically supposed to be a part of all of our realities, which that's just not the case, right? Most of us have been indoctrinated by some type of religion that's also fed to us that we're supposed to be married, we're supposed to wait for our man or whatever. Not me, I'm very gay, but we're supposed to wait for our man or whatever. And just know, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, from a little girl to like even now, we always have these ideas and expectations drop into our head about how life is supposed to look for us, and we haven't even lived it yet. And then when we do enter adulthood, now we have this picture in our heads, right? And that's what's going on in this scene with Donna, Lisa, and even Vanessa somewhere in the back of her mind, because you'll see it later on in the movie that she holds the same type of picture in her head. And what does this picture in our head look like, right? He's supposed to look like this. He's supposed to do this. He's supposed to treat me like this. It's all of these like check marks, and that's what you're looking for. And most women don't find it. Most of them end up settling. And some of them never stop because they were taught to never stop. They were taught to continue to look for this because it's out there. It's out there. You just have to keep searching. You have to keep hoping. And when they hold on to these expectations, it informs them to ignore reality. And when you inform yourself to ignore something, now it's turned into you lying to yourself. And once you start lying to yourself, now you have corrupted your relationship with yourself. Now you have ruined your foundation of trust within yourself. And whether we know it or not, when we do this, we contribute to our already ongoing oppression. And that simultaneously deepens our wound. And then that sends you right back into a loop. You're right back to your coping mechanism. And in this case, I'm using hope as an example because that's what they're displaying in this scene. Hope. They'll go right back to hoping, to wishing, to praying. And this is only to distract her from the pain and the devastation of her reality. That does not exist. And listen, I'm not saying hope is a bad thing, right? Hope can be good if it's used in a healthy manner. However, when it's used negatively, it can stunt our growth. It can create blocks within our growth. You know, most parts of our life require certainty. And to be certain, you have to be present. You have to be aware, not mentally occupied in a land that we wish were real. But moving on, that was the first coping mechanism. Now we're going into the next scene, and Lisa and Vanessa's mom, Victoria, played by Lynn Whitfield, are having lunch. So they're at this restaurant, and you know, they're about to order their food or whatever, and Lisa pretty much lets her mother know that Carlos has been beating her and hitting on her, right? And this is how her mother responded. Watch this clip.
Well, you must stop doing what you're doing to make him angry. What? Women sometimes have to deal with things to be comfortable. Mom, listen, you listen.
Now, in this scene, you have Victoria actively passing down her wound to her daughter. This lesson that she's trying to teach her daughter about what women sometimes have to do is something that she has experienced firsthand. And you'll see throughout the movie that Victoria has done nothing to address any of her wounds. And I can't really, you're not going to hear me talking down on Victoria because I understand how she got there, right? I don't really look at her as the villain in the movie. She is definitely the villain in Vanessa's and Lisa's life. But I also understand how she got there. But anyway, she knows what Lisa is going through firsthand. And whether she knows it or not, she was wounded by that. And because I'm sure she knows and felt pain from it. But she actually had to learn how to like just get over it and find a way to cope with it. So that's why she asked her, well, what did you do? Or don't try to make him mad and stuff. Like try to like coach her on how to operate around his behavior instead of just dropping him altogether because his behavior is inappropriate and a detriment to her, right? Victoria has learned to cope through compliance. She has learned that by complying, it makes things easy. Like the era that Victoria comes from, she comes from an era where they needed men as resources. If they didn't have men, because men had the most access to resources. If they didn't have a man, they found themselves struggling, especially since they weren't in connection with a lot of women, because most women were out trying to survive or in her own type of abusive dynamic with her man, right? So that left them without community, without being able to commune with each other. So a lot of them had to do a lot of shit alone. I mean, a lot of us are still doing a lot of shit alone. But back then, women were so separated from one another that there was no like space. Even if they did get together, you know, have a little girl chick chat or whatever, there was no space for truth. Like, we're all trying to survive. Even if you do come to me as a friend and tell me that your man is putting his hands on you, I'm pretty sure somebody would give the advice that Victoria gave to Lisa. Like, what did you do? Oh, make sure you don't do this to make him mad. Like, they had to learn how to operate around abuse. So a lot of people that comes from Victoria's era were taught to just, you know, shut up and don't say nothing and life will be easier for you. That's what they were taught. Be seen and not heard and everything will be all right. We can only teach what we know. So that's how shit gets passed down, and then you're introduced to what? The mother womb, right? But anyways, just so we can see how the womb works, I created a chart. So we'll start with Victoria first. Victoria has 2 children. She has 2 different baby fathers. No partner currently, but she does have past abusive experiences. And she thinks that women's compliance with a man's demand is the way for women to have a comfortable life. So this is Victoria as the mother. Now let's move on to Vanessa. And let's see if anything from Victoria's chart bled over into her daughters, Vanessa and Lisa. Now Vanessa, so far in the movie we know, she also has 2 children and she has 2 baby fathers. And she also doesn't have a partner currently. So you can see how Victoria's quality of like having 2 children, that transferred over to Vanessa. Also, her having 2 baby fathers transferred over to Vanessa too. And Vanessa shares that same ideal about women's compliance being the only way for women to have a comfortable life too. She just shows it in a different way. Hers is more religion based. I will talk about that later on though. Moving on to Lisa. Lisa, on the other hand, has no children yet. She does have a partner, however, we found out that he's abusive. And by way of her mother, she now has been taught that same ideal that in order for women to have a comfortable life, she must comply with the man's demands. Now in this next scene, we're finally introduced to Madea. She's a matriarch in her family, and she's in court. She's in court, and the judge is closing out her case, right? And while she's closing out her case, she started asking Madea, like, what did she do in her day-to-day life or whatever. She was just pretty much telling her about how she takes care of her brother. She takes care of her great nieces and nephew. She just always being the help to the community, right? So the judge was like, oh, okay, so you want to be a help? Well, I'm going to give you a foster child. I need you to foster this child. And now we're introduced to Nikki, who is played by Keke Palmer. And Nikki isn't a big player in this movie. She's not as focused on in this movie. But I did want to talk about her mother womb just a little bit because they showed it just a little bit. Now, she did talk about her parents just a little bit. She mentions that her dad is no longer alive and her mom is in jail. And we're talking about the mother womb. So the mother womb that she received from her mother is abandonment. She's not with her, and now she's in this situation where she's constantly going from foster home to foster home, which means she's constantly meeting people. People are sometimes returning her, which means that she's constantly getting abandoned over and over again. And she just has nobody. It's a feeling of she's alone, pretty much. She also mentions that in her previous foster homes, one of her foster mothers told her that the only thing she would ever be good enough for was laying on her back. That's another wound passed down to her. It's a self-esteem wound, a feeling of I'm not good enough. Her foster mother didn't feel like she was good enough. She didn't heal that wound, so she bled it out onto Nikki, and now Nikki has that wound. And you kind of see Madea help her begin to heal this wound within herself by, encouraging her that, like, hey, you are much more than that. You can do it. Don't ever listen to anybody like that. That's how she felt about herself. That's not going to be your story. She can't tell you your story because you are living your story. You get to write your own chapters. And you can put whatever you want in that bitch. Okay? Yeah, I just wanted to talk about her mother wound real fast because they kind of addressed it and they also kind of treated it in the same sense. And I was happy about that for her, especially since she was a child, right? I was happy to know that she came across a woman that she came across a woman that can empower her. I was really happy about that. But moving on, we've met Nikki. Nikki goes home with Madea and Brian, her nephew. I don't know if I mentioned that, but Brian was her lawyer, which is also played by Tyler Perry. Madea and Brian is both played by Tyler Perry, if you didn't know. Anyways, we're moving on from that. Nikki has went home with them. Now we're back to Victoria, Vanessa, and Lisa. They are at the bridal shop, and this shop is where Vanessa works. So they're at this shop discussing Lisa's wedding plans and everything. And once they're done, Vanessa's boss leaves, and now they're having this side conversation. And when they get into the side conversation, Lisa mentions that Madea is throwing a family reunion, and she's inviting her mother to come because her and Vanessa are gonna go. Ciao. Victoria said, hell no, in so many words, but she didn't say that, but she pretty much said, hell no. And just as a side note, I kind of get why Victoria didn't want to come, especially when you learn more about her story. Like, family sounds cool and all, but it sounds like they allow a lot of shit to go on in their family. Especially when you get when you get behavior like Victoria's, there is other shit going on in this family that people are not speaking on. And I feel like Victoria don't fuck with that. And they look at her as bougie, but I think she just uses her bouginess as like a defense mechanism. Like, okay, I'll be this, but I won't be doing the weird shit y'all be doing around here, even though she does. But I think that's how she sees it. Anyway, this whole time Lisa is trying to get Victoria to come to the family reunion, Vanessa isn't saying anything. And now it's starting to become clear that they don't really have a relationship, because Victoria nor Vanessa have acknowledged each other this entire time until Victoria says,
family, and it'll be good for you to see your grandkids.
I don't want to see those little bastards.
Ma'am, you will not talk about my children that way.
I swear, Vanessa, all the opportunities we afforded you, you have managed to throw every one of them away. You're just like your father.
Because Lisa's father had money, he was better than mine?
Your father was a musician who tried to ruin my life, is what I meant. Now, he threw his life away, and you are doing the same.
You took the easy way out and married that evil
Vanessa.
now there's a lot that happened in this scene. So remember the chart? We're gonna bring that on back out, right? We got some stuff to add. So in this scene, we find out that there's an energy of secrecy between Victoria and Vanessa. So that's another thing that Victoria passed down, keeping secrets. It's also very clear that Victoria and Vanessa are enraged. There's a lot of anger in their eyes, a lot of hurt too, and a lot of pain. And they're also very guarded. Those are all things that Victoria passed down to Vanessa. And then Lisa, on the other hand, in this scene, she's confused and like lost. And she looks this way most of the time throughout the movie. I feel like Lisa's confusion plays into the energy of secrecy I was talking about, though. Because I feel like Lisa expresses more subtle parts of Victoria. Lisa expresses the parts of Victoria that Victoria would never dare to acknowledge. How Victoria acts, you can tell that like something happened to her, and I'm pretty sure she felt the exact same way, and she behaved the exact same way Lisa behaved at a certain point. That like lostness, that feeling of confusion, and just overall helplessness. So based on this scene, I'm going to talk about a second coping mechanism that I've noticed in this movie, which is avoidance. And I'm talking about complete disengagement from a situation you know is painful, but you choose to ignore it. And like in this scene, We don't know what it is yet, but it's clear that there are secrets here. There is something that everybody is avoiding. Except for Lisa. Lisa is actually kind of lost in the sauce, but except for Lisa. But there's something people are avoiding, right? Something that they are avoiding. It's never acknowledged or it's never touched again. And like mold, it starts to grow, right? And it starts to silently grow until it starts to kill everyone. And this can be, it doesn't have to be a physical death. It can be a spiritual death. It can be an emotional death. It can be a mental death. When you use avoidance as a coping mechanism, you start to kind of feel hollow in the inside because you're actively ignoring a part of yourself. So now there's a big gaping hole right there. And I feel like you die in a way. And you can clearly see this with Victoria. She is emotionally dead. And I'm pretty sure she's probably spiritually dead as well. And probably mentally. Because she has learned to avoid things to an extreme. She doesn't even acknowledge it. And she taught that to her daughters. And I'm pretty sure somebody taught her to. The dynamics between mothers and daughters that cause pain all have one similarity. It doesn't matter whether a mother is neglectful on one end of the spectrum or invasive on the other end. The same patriarchal message is conveyed, which is that compliance is required in order to be accepted. One could say that the core message of patriarchy is to both men and women. You will not be loved unless you obey. This message permeates us from all facets of society, including education, religions, governments, and media. She goes on to quote another author by the name of Bell Hooks, who says that we have to highlight the ways women perpetuate and sustain patriarchal culture. This is from Bethany Webster's article, The Most Insidious Forms of Patriarchy Pass Through the Mother. So as a mother, right? She's surviving in this society that hates her. So just like the patriarchy, she too needs compliance to get by in this world. She needs compliance from her daughters. She needs compliance from all of her children. Let's not get that wrong, but especially from her daughters, because in a patriarchal culture, it's directly going against her daughters. So she needs to teach her how to not make her life harder because it's already hard. Therefore, oppressing her daughter, therefore, passing on the generational wound. Now I wanted to take some time to dissect how all three of them, Victoria, Vanessa, and Lisa, comply in order to be accepted in one way or another, right? I want to take some time to really dive into that, so let's get into it. So right out the gate, we know that Victoria is actively complying. With Vanessa, I almost said that she wasn't complying, but it just looks that way at first until you really, really think about it. And with Lisa, I feel like she's definitely complying because she's been forced to. So she kind of is complying by default. She's never contested or anything. She just goes along to get along. And that's done on purpose, but we'll get to that. First, we're going to start with Victoria. So I have listed here that Victoria complies by valuing marriage. Like, she doesn't necessarily values men. She more so values what men can do, what they can do for her, right? Which is resources, things of that sort. She centers men for what she thinks they can provide her access to. And this is whether it's directly through her or through her daughters. She's done it a lot through her daughters, but that's been her mindset for a long time surrounding men. She also complies by protecting abusers. And she disregards her daughter's experiences, which automatically means she disregards and suppresses her own. And you could tell she suppresses her own experiences because you can only give what you have, right? So she doesn't have compassion for her daughters because women around her or her mother didn't have compassion for her. So she don't have it to give because it was never given to her. Her complying in these ways has allowed her to be accepted by men and in the patriarchy because she goes along with the program. I be watching Erica De Niro TV, and what she be saying, this is an example. Victoria is a perfect example of effective patriarchy. She's the perfect example of effective patriarchy. But moving on, we're going to move on to Vanessa. Vanessa complies. I have a few things listed, but number one, she complies by keeping her mother's secret. And probably several of her secrets. And this deepens her wound because it sends out a few messages, right? And let's go over them. I'm just going to read them. Her keeping her mother's secrets signals to her, it sends out messages to her that her truth isn't worth being known, which reinforces the patriarchy's message to women that we aren't good enough. That's number one. Number two, her secrecy. Damn, girl, hold on. Number two, her secrecy reinforces her mother's wounded state. A part of Victoria knows that what she did was wrong. That's why she doesn't want it to be spoken out loud. Not speaking on it is like plunging a knife deeper into the wound because it invalidates Vanessa's experience and her mother's. Another way Vanessa complies is the fact that she values religion. And specifically religions that centers males and Father God, right? And I'm just going to read what I got because I don't think I lied not one time. She invalidates her experience again, deepening the wound because despite what she's gone through and have seen, her religion and her relationship to it informs her to ignore all of the evidence. Her religion gives her hope that the same male God that approves all of her experiences is the same one that's going to save her from them. And what experiences am I talking about with Vanessa? She has 2 deadbeat baby fathers, right? She has also been through something in her life with one of her mother's husbands. And we haven't talked about that yet, but she has already, if you've seen the movie, then you know, she's already been through something with one of her mother's husbands. So she has all these experiences connected to men. And she still values a Father God religion. The last way in which Vanessa complies is through celibacy. And I only said this because she's celibate for religious purposes, right? When in one of the scenes when she was talking to Frankie, she was saying that after her son was born, which is her youngest, that she turned her life over to God and she vowed to be celibate until the right man came along. And here's my theory. Because she wasn't married when she had her kids, right? And their dads are no longer around, she thinks she's being punished. So to remedy that, she becomes celibate, thinking that at the end of the road is finally her reward. And what's the reward? God's love in the form of a man. Or God's love in the form of a man. Moving on to Lisa. Lisa complies by not taking responsibility over her life. And this is for a few reasons, right? Her mother is partly to blame, but Lisa is kind of aware of it, right? The whole movie, I feel like the space Lisa was in, she was trying to figure out where the fuck she was and how the fuck she got there. it was like this wave of confusion attached to her the entire movie. And I feel like she was trying to understand, but she was genuinely confused and lost. And her mother made it that way. She has purposefully always controlled everything that she did. She's always done everything for her so she wouldn't know anything. And she only taught her what she wanted her to know. And her mother teaching her only what she wants her to know disempowers Lisa. Like, we're already disempowered, right? We're in a patriarchal society. She didn't arm Lisa with anything. So she's further disempowered, which means she's open to anybody. She's open for anything to happen to her. And her mother participates in that. Lisa's compliance also shows up as her compartmentalizing, right? Like, she sees things, but she doesn't say anything. She senses things, but she ignores it. I feel like in her head, she has like files. And say for instance, Carlos with his file, he has a file where he has all of his attributes, his physical attributes, his value, like monetary value and things like that. And then another file is all of these horrible and abusive things that he's done to her. She's been taught by her mother to focus on what gets her by. So she's not going to focus on the abuse. She's going to focus on the money, the cars, the bling, the material things. Because this is easier to focus on than this over here. Because all this over here, it has pain attached to it. And who wants to be in pain? Even though the pain ain't going nowhere. Like, but let it just sit over there in the corner. Like, we don't have to really worry about it. We're just going to look over here. And I feel like somewhere in there, her mother has the same type of file situation in her head. On one side, her mother has this type of file, and on the other side, she has this. She chooses to focus on this, not this. I feel it's the same way with her sister, and I feel that somewhere in the middle of all of that, they kind of mix up at some point. And when it mixes up like that in her head, I feel like it becomes too much because she already does not know what the fuck is going on. So she just shuts down. And she lets her mother do the thinking for her, or her sister, or whoever is willing to fight for her and do things for her. And I think what leaves her in a state of confusion is the fact that she never connects the dots. Like, she senses what could possibly happen if she does, which is what I feel like makes her run the other way. She just chooses to keep everything separate. And I just want to talk a little bit more about, like, the mind fuck that Lisa is going through. Like Vanessa kind of had to get it out. She had to kind of get it on her own. And she probably figured out a lot of shit by herself. She still also experienced a lot of abuse by way of Vanessa or Victoria, right? But Lisa looks like she got the better part of the deal. But she's really almost like held hostage by her mother. Like, I wrote right here, going back to like when I said she complies by not taking responsibility over her life. I said she knows she could take responsibility over her life, but her mother constantly reiterates that looks like how Vanessa lives her life. 2 kids, unmarried, lacking resources, and she's a working woman. And because she's always been taken care of, Vanessa's life does not look appealing. It does not sound appealing to Lisa. But now that she kind of is like having, I feel like, late development. Like, she's figuring out life as she goes because her mother didn't teach her anything beneficial to her about life. that would help her in this world, you know? So she's learning, like, yeah, Vanessa's life it don't sound appealing, but shit, the shit I'm going through is not appealing either. I'm about to be married with no kids and get my ass beat. Like, is that really a better way of living than Vanessa? And when she started connecting the dots and bringing everything together like that, that's when her mother steps in to guilt trip her and remind her of all the opportunities that she has afforded her. And she's the reason that she is what she is right now. And so Lisa shuts down and she just complies as to not be a recipient of Victoria's wrath, and also she complies to maintain that image, like that file I told y'all about, to maintain that file in her head about her mother so that she does not have to feel pain, because she's not used to that. And I believe that's all for that. We move on to the last scene that I wanted to cover, which was when their generational trauma was revealed, like when everything was like put on the table. And before we get there, like everything, I'm gonna run it down real fast what's been going on since like the bridal shop conversation. Real fast, Carlos has still been being Lisa. Vanessa and Frankie are still dating. Lisa finally escaped from Carlos one night, and she escaped to Madea's house to go be with her sister. And now we're at the part where her mother is coming to find her because Carlos sent her to come and get Lisa back, to bring her back to his house. So now she's at Madea's house, and Victoria, Vanessa, and Lisa are all having this conversation.
Lisa, one day I was sitting at the bottom of the stairs and I heard Mom and your dad arguing about me. You're too young to remember this, but he was going to leave. Oh my God.
I'm going to go ahead and put it out there that this is a trigger warning.
I'm gonna tell her. You are gonna tell her. He asked me for you. I had done everything I could in our family, everything I could to please him. If we were gonna be comfortable, I had to make some hard decisions. He would have walked off on us and left us destitute. You should be happy you were able to save our family. Are you insane? No, I'm a realist.
In the clip, it's revealed that Lisa's father raped Vanessa with the approval from her mother, Victoria. It was also revealed that Victoria's mother used to exchange her for drugs. And Lisa has been a pawn in this whole thing the whole time. And yeah, I think that was all that was revealed in this scene. So here we're seeing that Victoria, some of her wound shows that she was a victim of betrayal by way of her mother. And clearly she never healed from that. So she ended up passing her wounds along to her children. In this scene, one thing I can say is I think that Victoria thought that she was doing her daughters a favor. You hear her in the scene say that she's a realist or whatever, and I think that because she went ahead and showed them how the world worked, especially how she did with Vanessa, I feel like she was like, well, I told y'all the truth. I let y'all know the truth. I let y'all know how this world works. Why are you mad at me for how the world works? I'm trying to make sure that you survive out here. I feel like she was coming from a place of, well, my mama taught me this, like, it was nothing wrong when she did it. Nobody said nothing to her when she did it. I turned out okay. Like, I'm here. Y'all are here. I don't see what the problem is. I feel like she felt like her way of protecting them was throwing them into the thick of it. And of course, the shit that she did, it's definitely not the fucking way. But I feel like that was her mind process. That's how she processed it. She did not address her wound in a healthy way. And as a result, her wound got passed on to her daughters. And that is what we call the mother wound. And what is the mother wound again? And I feel like what we don't get, and this is just to close it on out, what we don't get is that when women are disempowered, nothing will ever go right in this world. As long as women are disempowered, nothing will ever go right. The mother, the womb is the beginning. It's our origin. And whenever you disregard, dishonor, disrespect your origin, you taint your entire existence. And that's it. That's it, y'all. That's all I have for now. I really enjoyed recording this video. This is my first video, so I kind of wanted to make it a little fun by having a movie alongside the topic. And I don't think this is gonna be my last time doing it. I really enjoyed it. And this also won't be our last time discussing the mother wound. We have to continue to discuss it because it aids in us healing. It aids in our healing. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. And if you didn't, leave a thumbs down. It's your prerogative. If you've seen this movie, what are your thoughts? Right? And leave it down in the comments. I'm currently navigating my own mother wound as well. And I know a lot of other women are too. So I have a question for y'all. And I'll see y'all in the comments. But the question is, girl, where is it? How do you healthily navigate your mother wound? I would love to know. I'll see y'all in the comments. Bye, y'all. See you next time.